So this is another wet fly from Ray Bergman's Trout. This is called the Allerton. Handsome little pattern. The blues and the yellows and the reds, all nice colors. Tail on this, the recipe calls for a barred wood duck or a teal. You can substitute teal if you want. I've gone ahead and used the barred wood duck simply because I like the color. It seems like kind of a nice accent to it. Also used a little bit different technique in the palmered hackle on this, something that's gaining in popularity these days. So I hope you find that interesting. That's the Allerton. I'll get started tying. So I'll start the Allerton with my hook on the vise. This is a Mustad 33.99 in a size 6. I'm going to debarb the hook and I'm going to attach my thread. I'm going to start, because there's a floss body on this, I'm going to start with a Danville 6/0 in white. I've already put some wax on the thread. I'm going to attach my thread about an eye length behind the eye of the hook and run it down the hook shank. I'm going to stop just past the point of the hook. This gives me some room to tie in the tip and the tail material. There is a tip on this, and it is some gold tinsel. I'm using a Danville silver and gold tinsel in a size 16/18. Now for the tip on this, you could use a size 14. I suppose if you wanted, it would cover that part of the hook a little bit quicker. But this is what I have out because this, I think, works best for the rib on this size hook. Tie that in with the silver side up. I'll put about 4 more wraps going down the hook shank almost to the very end of the shank. Taking my hackle pliers, I'm going to turn the hook upside down. And I do this, if you have a rotary vise, it's nice because I don't have to hassle with trying to get around the point of the hook and the thread at the same time. It'll flip over the gold side, and I will wrap this in. Generally with this size tinsel, it's about 5 to 6 wraps. We'll get the tip the length that I want, and then back up. I like the tip to start just between the point of the hook and the barb. Now I'll tie in the tail. The recipe for this in Bergman's Trout says that you can use either a barred wood duck or a teal. I'm going to go ahead and go with the barred wood duck. I like the colors on this a little bit better. I just think it makes it look a little bit more elegant. You could certainly, if you had nothing but, like, say, a bronze wood duck, a bronze mallard flank or something like that that has the nice dark barring, that's why you could use the teal. You could just use that. But I'm going to keep the black and white tips in on this, and I'm going to cut a slip out that's maybe not quite the gap of the hook. And I'm going to fold that over. That way I have the darker side of that on both sides. I'm going to measure that at the length of the shank. I go a little bit longer from behind the eye of the hook here to maybe the bend, like the tail's a little bit longer. Tie that in with a little pinch wrap. And now I'm working my way down the hook shank a couple wraps to where the end of the body will be. This will end up covering all the thread wraps up right up to the tag, or the tip, sorry. Now the hackle on the Allerton is a palmered blue hackle. There's a couple of ways you could do this. This is just a bass salt neck or a Chinese neck or something like this in a nice blue color. Most times you're going to tie this in by the tip and you're going to palmer this in and you're going to use both sides of the feather. However, there is a technique that has gained in popularity, at least from what I've seen in the last 10 years. And that is in a situation like this, or even with some collared dry flies and things like this, people will do this because it gives it a cleaner look. If you palmer this on, the whole thing, the hackle can look so busy that it kind of obscures the body a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to hold this with the concave side away from us. Okay, so I'm taking this top part here and I'm just going to peel away all these barbs on one side of the feather. I'm going to, even from the tip here, way out at the tip, I'm going to take a bunch of those out. Then what's left of that tip, I'm going to isolate that. Like this, trimming away most of that. And then I have this portion here that I'll tie in. Sometimes it helps if you take your hackle pliers, just grab that tip, because fat fingers like this, it's harder to grab it and then get in and get all those barbs going in a rearward direction. And I'm going to tie this in, you'll notice, with the barbs pointing downward. I'll get 2 or 3 wraps in to secure that. So all these barbs are pointing downward. That way, when I start to palmer this in, it will actually flip over and those barbs will all be sticking out nice and perpendicular. The rib is going to be the same. It's the same gold tinsel, and I'm using the Danville size 16 and 18. I'm going to put that in with the silver side up. Secure that in with a wrap. Now I'm actually right down the end of the body, right to the tip and the tail. The body is a yellow floss. I'm using a Danville 4-strand Rayon in yellow. I'm going to tie that in, pulling that back to get the floss the length of the body. Now I start wrapping forward. By doing it this way, it does help to mitigate any kind of a bump at the rear end of the body. Now I'm going to wrap in the floss for the body. Then I'm going to put in the rib. The rib's just going to be the standard 5 wraps, open wraps, even spaced. And then the hackle, when I wrap it in, will follow the back side of the rib. So that's the only thing you have to kind of be cautious of. And sometimes it will be in the right position on your side as you're looking at it, but on the back side it's a little off. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal if you're just fishing the fly, but something to look at. get up to the front where the wing is going to be, I like to put in just an extra wrap. Just to give it a little bit more hackle right up front. After that, I'll stroke all of this back. That allows me to get the thread wrapping that back. Don't go too far, because all I want to really do is trap the rachis of that feather in so I can pop it out. You don't want to have too many wraps that are going to force these hackle fibers in a rearward direction. So you can see the body on that's a little sparser. Excuse me, I should say the hackle is a little sparser on that, and the body itself is much more visible. Now I have one here that I did, this particular one. I actually tied in the full hackle and palmered this one on, and you should be able to see that there's much more going on here with this hackle, and the body itself is a little bit more obscured. It just is fuller. If you like that look, by all means go ahead. Part of it's going to depend on the hackles that you're using. These are a little sparser. Some hen hackles are a little bit denser. So stripping one side and having all that, dense barbs is going to make it a little fuller. But stripping one side on another hackle is going to make it look too sparse. So that's up to you. I'm going to attach my finishing thread. It's a black Danville 6/0. I've already waxed this one as well. I want to bring this back just as far as I need to the back of the headspace for tying in a wing. Smooth this area off. I want to try and minimize any of these hackles getting trapped in a rearward direction. I am going to wet my fingers a little bit and try and spread these barbs down to each side so that when I put the wing in, it just goes right in between them. The wing is just a scarlet. I'm going to use some Goose for this. I've already got a couple of slips cut out. Get these matched up. I want to make certain that I've got the tips evened up, and then I want to make certain that they're the same width. I got an extra barb, too, actually, on this one. So I'll place these up here. I want the tip to go about halfway down the tail. Difficulty here is you kind of have to get your fingers up here in front and slide back and then bring the wing down. Otherwise, if you just bring your fingers in, you can end up trapping some of those hackles. When I say in, meaning if you just come in and pinch from both sides. So you set the wing up there and you come in and you pinch from both sides here, you can get some of these hackles trapped in a forward direction. You want those to be still not poking out forward. They're kind of squished down right now, but they will certainly, when they get wet, kind of fluff back out, and in a second here we'll actually help those a little bit. So trimming away the excess on the wing, I'm going to form the head, covering up any butt sections, cleaning all of this up, getting a nice taper down to the eye of the hook. Make certain I got everything covered. We got one little red spot right there, but I think I can get that with the whip finish. Plus the fact that I'm going to be putting a couple layers of black lacquer on this, that little tiny bit still poking through the thread there is not really going to be an issue. I would rather have a little bit like that I can cover up with the whip finish or the lacquer than put in more wraps that are going to end up bulking the head up more than it should be. Turn away my thread. Add a little bit of head cement. And as I said, in just a moment, I'll put some black lacquer on that, and our Allerton will be done. Handsome fly. A number of these wet flies have the palmered hackles like this, and it's up to you whether you want to do all of them, with stripping away one half of it, or none of them, or just some in between. I said part of that is going to be dependent on the actual hackles that you have and how dense they are. But it's an interesting technique, and like I said, it's gained in popularity in a lot of different fly tying arenas, like I said, with these wet flies and dry flies and some other things. I just thought I would demonstrate it. So there's the Allerton. Thanks for watching today.
Thanks for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.